Let's get to Rabbi Menken. Rabbi, thanks for being here with us today. There's a shift now going on, and the shift in the MAGA movement's real, and you can no longer hide it. The results of the two elections in Virginia and New Jersey were a catastrophe for Republicans. Trump voters didn't show up. Both Republicans went backwards by -10 from 24. There's a lot of people in this movement who are saying, okay, enough with Israel, enough with the Abraham Accords, enough with KSA, enough with the Middle East, enough. Got your hostages back, yay. We got to get back to domestic policy. This is now becoming a real issue in MAGA to get our voters out. And if we don't get them out, we're going to lose the midterms. Help us understand what is going on.
You know, the damage is continuing. And by the way, not anti-Semitic is playing that pretty fly for a rabbi intro music. That was merely funny on the part of your producer. At least he was trying to be funny. As you said, maybe you'd be better off just going back to Southern rock. I probably share your opinion on that too. But, you know, false accusations of anti-Semitism have done a lot of damage over the past couple of years. If you look, actually, Tucker Carlson has a video of himself. There's video of him when he was working at the Daily Standard as a writer, speaking about Pat Buchanan, again, in 1999, which basically he explains everything that is wrong with Tucker Carlson today in terms of how he speaks about the Jews in Israel. He was correctly calling out Pat Buchanan for this nonsense also. The point is that, you know, back then there were people to push him out of the party, and people realized that was the sane way to go. There is tremendous political damage being done to the left, not in states like New York, but in states where sanity is still valued, by this nonsense of, you know, the endorsement of anti-Semitism, that we're going to call the Jewish Holy Land Palestine and claim that Arab marauders, who, by the way, can't even pronounce the word, are the native Palestinians. This is just sheer anti-Semitic stupidity. It is the default left position now. And look on the right, and it used to be that you could pretty seriously depend on the right to push back against it. Who do we imagine that Nick Fuentes and his supporters are going to vote for if he is called out for his anti-Semitism? Is he going to start saying, oh, okay, so then we should vote for Hillary? Is he going to say vote for Kamala Harris? That's simply not going to happen. The same thing is true of Tucker Carlson. There has to be serious pushback. The danger to civilization is actually very, very real. And the danger to the right as a political movement is very real, because it's throwing away one of the serious advantages it has, which is if you simply look at the relationship between the U.S. and Israel on a neutral basis, side by side, it is so much better than what the U.S. military has to do in South Korea and in Germany, and the amount of intelligence that is gained, and the number of 9/11s that are prevented by Israelis telling the Americans what's going on. This is a very dumb time to be messing with that relationship, but that's exactly what's going on.
Let's get Paul Teller involved. Paul, the last 2 weeks have been enveloped in all this anti-Semitism stuff and some of the stuff coming out. And now a lot of people concerned in our movement that just too much time and energy is being spent in the Middle East, and that the president needs to refocus on domestic policy, inflation, bringing costs down, getting our energy up, things of that nature, and too little, and stop spending all this time on the Middle East. Like, it is what it is. You got the hostages back. What is your view on that? Who's right? Who's wrong?
You can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? I don't understand why folks are saying, let's abandon the Middle East, let's abandon foreign policy and focus solely on domestic. I mean, the man's got, you know, more energy at 5 a.m. and then still at 1 a.m. the next day than most of us have, you know, at 2 p.m. or something. So I'm not seeing why it has to be either or. But yeah, you're right. We have to, and the rabbi's right, we have to speak against this dangerous thread that seems to be maybe amongst some younger folks on the right is where it seems to be most concentrated, that somehow like putting energy into the homeland of the Judeo-Christian Western civilization is somehow a problem. But putting energy into the only democracy in the Middle East, our only ally, as the Rabbi pointed out, our best source of intel, our best source of technological innovation in the Middle East, that turning away from that somehow benefits America. Not seeing that, it should be an easy sell, and I think we just need some better mouthpieces so that they don't feel like they have to turn to Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson is bold and exciting. Who's bold and exciting on our side of this issue? So that's, I think, what we need to work on.
That's a great point, Paul, that you just made, because and look, this is how he's getting clicks and a following and making a ton of money, because he's saying something that no one else says. I think it's disgusting. I don't agree with any of it. I think it's gross. But I'm not part of his audience, and this is a real issue, Rabbi.
I'm totally with you on that. The interesting thing is, again, go back to 1999. Carlson was clearly pushed. There is a problem. The Jewish left, people give way too much credibility to Jewish leftists claiming that their own opinion is that of the Jews and that of Judaism. Neither of those is actually true. The overwhelming majority of rabbis in America are traditional and conservative and huge Jewish values, which come out of the Bible. The reason why evangelical values and Catholic values and Jewish values seem to line up so much of the time is because we all got them from the same place. So let's stop playing around with, where the real alliance is. And when the left has been claiming that the anti-Semitism back in 2017, when we got started, we were in Trump 1, and the left was busy claiming that anti-Semitism is a conservative problem. Remember Tree of Life Synagogue, the Tree of Life assassin was absolutely, he hated Trump from A to Z. And yet, because he was right of center, that, you see, anti-Semitism is a conservative problem. That is laughable today. Everybody knows that is nowhere near the truth. But it was actually laughable then. It was just more obvious today that this hate is really, it's been coming out of the left. And the real problem with Tucker Carlson is that he is saying the leftist rhetoric as a conservative.
So, Paul, where do we go from here on this? Paul Teller.
Well, I think, I was thinking one thing as both of you were talking is that, yes, we, of course, have to focus on the, growing anti-Semitism on the right. But what's been frustrating, across the conservative movement is that it's gotten us away from focusing on the much bigger problem, as the Rabbi just pointed out, much bigger problem of anti-Semitism on the left. And it's not even just on the left. At least Tucker Carlson is elected to nothing, right? But we just, the people of New York City just elected an anti-Semite to be the mayor. So I mean, that's a much bigger problem. That's a much greater concern than, anything that, that we could find on X or on a radio show like this or anything else like that, right? In other words, let's focus on the people who are actually in power on the floor of the House, in the mayor's mansion in New York City, who have real power, real governmental power, and are anti-Semites. And I think that would do us a lot better.
Well, Rabbi, I'm going to give you the final word here. You got a minute.
I got a minute to say what? Rabbi Paul just really said it all. The society has to respond to this on the right and on the left. It is very sad that the right now has this same problem infecting the movement, but it is absolutely crazy to endorse it. The young people need to recognize, get an education in the Middle East. Recognize that it is, explain to me how it is that the lowest civilian to combatant kill ratio in the history of modern urban warfare is where you accuse genocide. That simply doesn't work. Where a journalist is killed, it's automatically the fault of whoever did the shooting rather than who started the war. In the Ukraine-Russia war, everybody knows that every casualty is Russia's fault, including the hundreds of Russians killed, including the dozens of journalists killed. But when it comes to Israel, no, we're not going to blame the genocidal terror organization. We're going to blame the Jews.
All right, Rabbi, I got to go. Rabbi, Executive Vice President of Coalition of Jewish Values, Paul Teller, Executive VP of Advancing America's Freedom. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. Thank you for the lively discussion. I will be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. Michael Patrick Leahy next. Keep it right here.